and welcome to this edition of EMS Now Up Close. I am Eric Miskell with EMS Now, and today it's my pleasure to speak with Zach Feuerstein. He is the founder and CEO of Breadboard, and Breadboard, I think, as you will find out, is a very interesting, newer company servicing electronics manufacturing industry. So Zach, welcome. I've been looking forward to this conversation and ability to get caught up with you. Why don't you start by kind of introducing yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here, Eric. Always great talking to you and being a big help in the industry as we're a new company in the space. Yeah, a little background about me. I've always been into hardware engineering, specifically electrical engineering. My father is also an electrical and computer engineer, got my education in it. But really, as I was thinking about my first job out of college about 10 years ago, realized that hardware is really hard. And it's not something that's easy to jump into. At the time didn't pay as well as software, and really decided I'm going to start my career as a software engineer. And from there, really been an entrepreneur ever since. I started my first company being the CTO of an ed tech company that we sold to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, then moved into fintech and then into healthcare technology, where I was most recently helping medical device companies and life science companies figure out who to talk to in terms of different clinical trials and running conferences. And the idea for Breadboard, which we started, emerged in late 2021, early 22, when I was a consumer. I was trying to buy a bunch of different products, including, a car and a refrigerator, and kept on being told, sorry, there's a 3 to 6 month wait list on it from the chip shortage. And I really recognized that, this wasn't just the pandemic that was causing this. There was something deeper going on, and started looking deep into it. So that's a little background about me, and yeah, excited to tell you a little bit more about Breadboard.
That's interesting how you got into it there from a consumer perspective. That's a great story, and what a great perspective that brings to it, right? Just, I think that's fantastic. So yeah, Breadboard. Let's start there. What is Breadboard? Who is your solution kind of oriented to in the industry?
Yeah, so Breadboard's a comprehensive electronic supply chain platform that we specifically designed for manufacturers. And really what our platform does is it transforms the traditionally unreliable, costly, and manual processes of quoting, sourcing, and monitoring electronics components into a streamlined and automated solution. And we achieve this, not by just providing the live global data about every component, including tech specs, compliance information, alternate parts, and also obviously the pricing and availability from all the suppliers, but also integrating this into our clients' existing systems. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, and provide them with the automated tooling on top of those systems to deal with their most complicated workflows and requirements, given this industry is not easy. It's not as simply as ordering, pizza or a burger on Grubhub. There's a lot of different, requirements and systems that go into it.
Yeah. So your clients are primarily EMS and OEM?
That is correct, right? We've really focused on North American EMS and OEMs who are looking to scale out and really think about a reliable supply chain moving out of the pandemic.
Okay. And so within that kind of rubric of the supply chain, which are the specific functions that your solution is geared towards?
Yeah, it's really geared towards quoting, procurement, and supply chain monitoring and planning, right? So we want to say, hey, everything that has to do with material, and everything you need to know about it and action upon it, we can help you with that with Breadboard.
Okay. And so obviously there are other companies out there doing this. So what do you think makes Breadboard unique in this space?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the documentation, the requirements, everything about this industry is really complex, right? It's not as simple as part A, this supplier, this price, go buy it, right? You're typically seeing that everything from the data formats, right, whether it be a bill of materials that's coming from a scan of a schematic, PDF, or a bill of materials that has, 40 different part numbers across different rows, with some of them being misspelled, to RFQs that are being sent over email back and forth, to customized AVLs you need for each of your customers in different manufacturing plants. All of that needs to be able to be configured in an easy and automated way. And really what we've set ourselves apart with is we don't care what that data or workflow looks like. We can handle that in just a matter of seconds so that you're not designing your workflow for the software, but the software is designed to deal with your existing workflows.
That makes sense. So, and that's what I wanted to get into with you as well, beyond just introducing Breadboard, is kind of speak to me about kind of you have to manage kind of this growing complexity in your client data. And within that are also kind of escalating expectations, right? So kind of speak to that kind of conundrum and what you're seeing and how you're having to manage that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of different players in the space, right? And they all think about data and transferring between each other in different ways, right? So there's, let's simplify it as we're an EMS company, we're ourselves, we have our suppliers we're getting our components from, and we have our clients that we're servicing, let's say. The clients, they don't want to have to customize how they're communicating with you. They want it as simply as, here, let me drop my information however I have it, right, and hand that over to you. And I want to know pretty much instantly how much this is going to cost me, how long it's going to take, and be sure that they're not going to come back to me with more problems than I sent them, right? So that's kind of like, one side. And then on the side of being the EMS company, right, I have my existing inventory. I might have my previous contracts that I have with our suppliers, and I have all this information in disparate systems. And then on the supplier side, I have all the information about my parts, how much they're going to cost you to buy it, how long it's going to take. And all of those different systems don't currently interact with each other, right? While there are some supplier APIs, that works great if you have some off-the-shelf component, right? And you just want 5 of them and you want to go buy it, great. But what happens when it's a custom component and you need to send that out for RFQ with some design file? Or what happens when you're building this in a manufacturing facility that has much tighter margins right on it and therefore can't handle the same amount of overage or scrap? How do you figure all these things out without pulling your hair out or spending 20 hours to make $1,000, right? It just doesn't add up. And really for us, we think about, okay, all these people, they have all this different data points, they have all these different problems. How do we just sit on top of that, read all of those different points, analyze it, understand the context behind it, and then let the user only deal with the problems that are actually need human interaction, which are becoming less and less over time.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you bring up a good point there, with the disparate kind of platforms and everything, but also, yeah, I know within the industry, there've been attempts to have kind of standardized formats or languages, right? You think about CFX, you think about Hermes, you think about those kind of standards. But why do you think that there's really not standardized formats for all these items within the industry?
I think there will be over time, right? But I don't think we're there yet. This is not an industry that moves very quickly. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's a double-sided sword there. So to get big players, out there, these large OEMs, for example, to say, hey, we're all going to use the same bill of material format. We're all going to call apart this and that. Yeah, we'll get there eventually. But in the meantime, what are we going to do about it? Do we sit and twiddle our thumbs and just say, sorry, we'll wait for it? Or do we say, okay, let's live with the problems that are out there and not have people, as I said, pull out their hair for it? So yeah, I think those standards we're going to become. I also think we're going to see more and more of this information being done earlier in the process. We'll see a lot of this being done on the design side. We see some innovative new companies doing, Figma for electronics design, which is great. I think more and more will move there, but I think it could take us 5-10 years before that officially happens.
And this is an interesting point, I think, because do you think any of that has to do with just competitiveness and wanting to maintain some differentiation rather than jumping everybody on the same platform and kind of homogenizing everything? Maybe there's some benefit to some companies by being different, being, maintaining more proprietary type systems?
I think it's a combination of factors, right? Definitely, always people are looking out for themselves as they should and want to make sure that they're not giving up more information than they're getting back and and losing out their competitive advantage. But I think this is just more of an operational thing, right? It's hard to get all these different people to change, right? There's probably $600 billion, right, worth of semiconductors traded every year across, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of corporations and people. Um,
Yeah,
to change everybody's method around them and get them on the same standard across the world, I think it's
yeah,
just a challenging process, and something that is difficult to do. Think about just like USB, right? How many times do you stick in still your USB-A, right? Wire, and you're not even sure if it does data or just power, right? And this is a one single right thing that we've been working on for 20 years, right? So moving in the industry is hard.
yeah. No, amen. But now, listen, at the same time, with all this, you have client expectations for relative to speed, precision, and customization are certainly increasing and growing as well. So, what do you see in this area that's causing challenges?
Yeah, so I think we all live in a world of immediacy right now, right? As I was saying right earlier, it's like the expectation is I want to go get my burger right from my favorite restaurant in New York City where I'm out of right now. I'm 3 clicks away from that, and somebody will physically come to my door and deliver it for a very low fee, right? I think everybody is saying, well, why is not my industry like that? Why is my job not that easy? Why is it procuring electronics or manufacturing is not that simple? And somewhat rightfully so, right? Obviously, it's a more complicated process, but we do need to innovate. We're building awesome hardware. The processes, the tooling to actually build that hardware needs to come up to speed with the technology itself. And hopefully, we're one of many, many people that can work on that problem and make it better.
Right. So, what impact do you think this all has on the EMS's, an EMS company and industry writ large, really, ability to scale and grow?
So I think we're at a critical time right now. We're seeing a lot of, it's called by different names, reshoring, exshoring, whatever. But we're seeing a lot of, business moving around the world and shifting from where it's been. And as an EMS company right now, you have to think about how do I seize on that opportunity? How do I make sure that I'm ready to capture a huge client that may not be big now, or maybe is just offering me a quick prototype right now, but show them that I can get back to you quickly, effectively, and reliably, most importantly, and give you a great solution. And that's hard when there are so many different, places to buy components from. Often the data is inaccurate. Um, People have this, crazy expectation, right, about that speed. How do you handle all of that? And that's challenging, especially in a world right now where even staffing, right, for electronics manufacturers and EMS companies is becoming harder and harder. And then while I think, right, like the CHIPS Act and other factors like that of throwing more money at the problem can be
Mhm.
helpful somewhat, but I don't think it's the full solution.
Right. And that's, yeah. And you talk about the human thing there, the labor force, which, automation is seen as kind of part of the solution in that realm, which makes me think, so how does one automate, build process efficiencies and scale when each customer's requirements are so unique and ever evolving?
Yeah, so to the first part there of automation and the solution of jobs, what I would say there is it's not necessarily a replacement. It's also an attraction, right? We need to make manufacturing cool, right? We need to make people, right, who are in their 20s and even their 30s say, hey, I want to work at a electronics manufacturer instead of, right, some cool marketing firm or hedge fund or work at even a retail store, right? We have to make it exciting and easy to do and something where they're getting to use the latest and greatest technology. So that would be like the first thing I would say. I don't think necessarily automation is a replacement, but also an enticement, right, for that labor. In terms of right that ever changing requirements and that being for every single customer different, you have to have systems that are easy to use but also dynamic, right? And that's a difficult balance, right? And a lot of that comes into design, right? You don't want to have a PhD to use the software, but at the same time, right, it should be fully customizable. And that's where we really invest our time, right? Here at Breadboard, for example, right? We say, how can we make it as easy as possible for a customer to customize, right, whatever workflow they're doing, and spend, a 50th of the time they would just manually doing that to customizing it, and then never have to think about that again for that client or that type of project.
Yeah. So tell me, as you're developing that, then how interactive is that with your clients when they're adopting your solution? Are you helping them to customize that, or are many of them finding it kind of easy enough to plug and play?
So, in terms of how we design it, our clients and just the market in general are critical, right? As I said, I came into this from a consumer perspective.
Yeah.
I do have my degree in electrical and computer engineering, but I never, did anything with it in a commercial setting. So, getting people who are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis to influence what we build, how we build it, is absolutely critical, and it's our favorite thing. We love to go to client sites. We love to get on Zooms, right, and talk to them for as long as they're willing to learn about their processes. Once we built it, though, we try to make it as plug and play as possible, right? We're getting our clients up typically within 24 hours, being able to have their full quoting and sourcing solution directly through Breadboard, and then we'll implement over time any type of customizations or integrations like with an ERP system or a CRM as they want to pull in historical data or inventory. But to be honest, that's a pretty quick process too, typically integrated within a week or two, given how simply we've made our connections. And we'll typically take on that work for our clients and make sure it's as easy as possible.
Okay. So how are, obviously you're talking to a lot of people. How are the different industry players addressing these issues, and kind of what solutions are you seeing that are promising?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people working on this from a lot of different perspectives. So, I think on the hardware side, it's very, very interesting to see there are a bunch of new players who are starting to actually make the floor machinery connected and fully programmable, right, on the fly, right? So instead of each new job, I have to go in and reprogram it, right? That being able to just happen end to end, right? And I think that's an awesome solution that's going to help a lot in this industry. I think on the supplier side, I think, now it's been a few years, but opening up their APIs and their data to third parties, while can be challenging, obviously, because then you're opening up some of that data that can be used competitively, right? I think a lot of these businesses are starting to understand if they're not digitally connected, they're not going to retain their business, right? People who are, real enterprises who are not hobbyists don't want to go to a supplier website and say, hey, I want this part and order it there. They want this to be automated solutions. So I think there's great work there. And then on the consumer side, the design software, right? Or not even the consumer, the OEM side, the design
Mhm.
software is getting also more integrated with the supplier data and the supply chain data, which I think is critical because you don't want to have to go back to the design side and say, hey, sorry, this component's not available. It's time to swap it out.
Yeah. And that's a good. So, one of the big issues too, obviously, in the industry has been the use and application of AI. Um, how's that work within your solution? How is that employed?
Yeah, we really use it in terms of taking those raw documents, right? So those pieces of information that are unstructured, call it that schematic with a bomb drawing, right? Bomb drawing
Mhm.
directly on it. And not only scanning that and say, okay, here's the text. That's relatively easy.
Yeah.
That's been around for a while. But how do you understand the context of that, right? Maybe there's an extra line on there that says, hey, this is a suggested alternate for this other line within a table, right? How do you know what that actually means? Or if I'm
Mhm.
emailing back and forth, right, in terms of, negotiation with a supplier, what can we recommend you say, whether it be based on market data, whether it be based on just the phrasing of how you're doing it to make sure you get the best price, right? And follow up correctly, not only to get the best price, but maybe also the quickest response from your supplier. So that's how we're using it today. And then we're in the early stages of research on, more of those predictive models, right? So, hey, we know historically how much you've been paying and what the stock looks like and what these, product life cycles look like. How can we predict that and combine that with the other systems we're already integrating with, whether it be your ERP, MRP system or inventory management system, whether it be your, CRM for your sales data, and say, okay, based on your sales data, based on your inventory, based on the market data, here's the best time to buy and which components, and potentially here's how you can modify your design for certain product lines to consolidate spend across them. So those are some of the areas we're in the early research and some pilot programs that we've been testing out with some of our early customers.
Yeah. So tell me, as an entrepreneur, right? You had to learn this industry, right? Even though you had a background, as you indicated, educationally, and you've worked, but electronics manufacturing is kind of a unique beast, and as it's up. And I know that you spent a lot of time over when you started talking to a lot of people in the industry, soliciting input and advice. And I know that we've spoken in the past. As you reflect back on that, what was kind of some of the best advice that you received as you were building Breadboard?
I think this, sits across every industry, but you got to experience the pain, right? So, the first thing I did, right, is like I went to what now is a customer, but at the time was just a friend and advisor. And I said, hey, can I come to your company? Can I sit on your shop floor? Can I sit with your quoting and purchasing teams? And can I take on some of that work, right? Just for, free. I just want to be a helping hand. So I can empathize, right, with the problems you have, use this existing solutions that do exist on the market. We're built on top of the shoulders of other great companies, right, that have been in this space, and learn how we could do it better, right? And I try to get all of our employees and my team to do that too, right? Yesterday we just went through actually, and they all quoted out a 50 line item bill of materials that was extremely messy by hand, just to say, hey, this is what it would be without us. Now look at it what it is, so that you can really understand that pain and then be passionate about solving that for somebody else.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a good story. So tell me, what can we look forward to from Breadboard this year? 2024 is fast upon us, and people who are interested in learning more, getting a demo, how does one get a hold of you and Breadboard?
Yeah. So what are we doing this year? We mastered, right, what we think is quoting, right, and data in our first year in business, right, last year. I think if you're looking for a solution that's being able to take any type of data, get that quoted out, get that back to your customers, get all the intelligence about these parts, right? Come to us and we'll be able to help you out better than we think anybody else can out there. Really this year we think about how do we complete that process. Great, you can submit a purchase order, but there are just as many problems after that purchase order is submitted, down to getting that delivered and manufactured. We really think you need to be able to not only submit them, but track them to delivery, deal with any of the issues that arise, have pre-built mitigation plans built in, and automate that from end to end. So that's a big piece, and much, much more coming in 2024. If you're interested in learning more about our company, definitely go to our website, breadboard.com, or you can reach out to me personally at Zachary@breadboard.com, and we'd be happy to show you a demo, even give you a little bit of a trial, and get you guys up and running in just a matter of seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice on your website when I was looking at it earlier, there is a requested demo connection on there, so that people can go right there, learn more, and then if interested, reach out. So that's fantastic. Zach, I'm glad we finally had an opportunity to get caught up and get, it's quite a story. It's quite a success, that run that you're on here. I wish you nothing but, continued success. And hopefully we can get some updates as your journey continues.
Thanks so much, Eric. It's always great talking to you. And yeah, this is just step one of our journey. So excited to share more as we grow.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Thank you.